It's a time for joy, a time for tears, a time I'll treasure through the years. Yes, I was talking about my anniversary. Not really. Today we're going to take a look at the Beach Boys' Graduation Day, a digital-only release. I thought this was very appropriate as many of our young people are graduating high school or college, so my hats off to them. What better way to celebrate than with literally an album called Graduation Day. And of course, for all my current or former students watching, I'm very proud of you all. And it's been my pleasure to have been your teacher. So the Beach Boys have several different digital releases, and I've talked about a few of them before. Someday we'll do videos that are exclusively digital like this one, but usually they're just more, in my eyes anyway, more supplemental materials. Full concerts, outtakes, studio sessions, all sorts of different things. So Graduation Day is from 1966. This was recorded in October at the University of Michigan. We've seen one 1966 archival release before. This is the unofficial CD I did a review on about a year ago, live in Japan, 1966. This was recorded much earlier in the year. Again, I have a whole video on it. This album for today, Graduation Day, is similar, but it's different enough that I don't feel like I'll just be saying the same old comments over and over again. And while this CD is not official, it is of questionable origin. The digital releases are indeed official. They are fully endorsed by the Beach Boys brand, and so on. So, think of the era that this is taking place in. 1966, the group getting ready to celebrate their 5th anniversary the following year. The group having many hit albums, having recently come out with Pet Sounds, which was a huge success with the music crowd and the artist crowd and in Europe, but was met with confusion in the United States, despite having a couple very successful singles. So we've reached a point where the group wants to break away from their surf image and embrace this more artistic stuff. And indeed, the Smile sessions, Brian Wilson's pet project Smile, which we'll do a video on the box set and everything else someday, was definitely on the horizon. So, you know, are they doing Smile songs live yet? No, not really. It's a much more conventional set list, I think, than you might expect. These were recorded at the 2 homecoming shows, not graduation shows. In case you didn't know, the little phony baloney I was doing at the beginning is a spoof of the song Graduation Day, from which this album has taken its name. But it should be called, I guess, Homecoming Day. Presumably one show was before the homecoming game, and the other show was after, judging by what the banter says. So the set list, this is true of both shows, goes Help Me Rhonda, I Get Around, a surf medley, we'll come back to that later, Surfer Girl, Papa Ooh Mau Mau, You're So Good to Me, You've Got to Hide Your Love Away, California Girls, Sloop John B, Wouldn't It Be Nice, God Only Knows, Good Vibrations, Graduation Day, and Barbara Ann. The second show also includes Johnny Be Good, we'll come back to that a little later too. And there are 2 bonus tracks, KOMA Radio Promo, and Row 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 Your Boat by the Honeys. Now, very interesting stuff. Pretty recognizable set of songs, I would say. A lot of these digital-only releases, these various archival releases, we have had songs from them appear before on different things, and this is no exception. Several songs from this collection have been previously released. The Surf Medley, which consists of, let me double check, Surfin' Safari, Fun Fun Fun, Shut Down, Little Deuce Coupe, and Surfin' USA, was previously released on Endless Harmony soundtrack in 1998. This is a 2000 reissue of that CD. This is the version from the first show, as confirmed in the liner notes. The Live in Japan album has a shorter version of this medley with just Shut Down, Little Deuce Coupe, and Surfin' USA. Remember, at this point the group kind of wanted to start getting rid of those songs. They didn't want to do the surf songs, the hot rod songs anymore, and so they were condensing them into this medley because they were still big fan favorites and getting them out of the way as quickly as they could. So this is probably like the de facto medley. They'd continue to use this into 1968. So that's cool. We've heard that one before, or one version of that one before, I should say. If you had the Good Vibrations box set from 1993, the penultimate track on there, the second to last track, is the live version of Good Vibrations from the second show. The liner notes and Endless Harmony soundtrack confirm that. It's a really good version. They hadn't done it live very much at this point, and they do a pretty good job. It's a little thin because they don't have a backing band. It's still very much just the core Beach Boys. But I think it comes off pretty good, especially because it's like maybe the second, third time they ever did the song in front of an audience. Turns out okay. So we've heard that one before, and then 3 of the live recordings popped up on the Pet Sounds 50th anniversary. Most people have the Pet Sounds Sessions box set from 1996 for the 30th anniversary. This is the 50th anniversary book with the furry goat on the cover there. And the big draw for this was that there were a few unused tracks. They took the 1996 box set, jumbled the order all up, and added in some takes from I Know There's an Answer, which weren't on that original set, a couple weird Good Vibrations tracks, and a bunch of live stuff. So we have 3 of them here. We have Wouldn't It Be Nice, Sloop John B, and God Only Knows, all from the first show. There is some editing going on with the banter and the intros and whatnot. It's not the only Beach Boys album to take like a different section of a concert and re-edit it somewhere else. Made in California does that too with some of its live tracks. It's a little disconcerting, and some of the banter in here and like their introduction stuff I didn't hear on this digital album, so maybe it even comes from a completely different show. This man explaining, tonight's concert's being recorded. So I don't know the whole story there, but interestingly, they also put the songs out of order as opposed to the set in the original. Don't know the story behind that either. It doesn't really deter from it, because remember this is only a small excerpt, so it doesn't necessarily have to be in order, but it is kind of unusual. Alright, so that's the stuff we'd previously seen. Oh, and of course the bonus radio track for KOMA is also on this box set. Almost forgot, as it's like a 10-second promo. Very easy to forget about it, I suppose. So the digital download cover image, I just print these off so I have a manipulative here. You can see Carl, Mike, Brian, Dennis, and Al. Al's in the middle, sorry. I didn't get them in order. Bruce is present. He doesn't really have a spotlight moment, but you can hear him in a few instances. He sings on the songs he's supposed to sing on. At this time, he was still relatively new to the group, so maybe he wasn't like fully a member of the fold yet. But he is there. Brian's part is very small. He only comes out the end, presumably to play with them on Johnny Be Good and to oversee the performance of Good Vibrations. Honestly, it doesn't even sound like he plays on Johnny Be Good. It sounds like he just comes out at the very end, waves to the audience, and goes back. There have been many, many articles and things published on this that talk about him joining the band on Good Vibrations and Barbara Ann and stuff. Honestly, I think his involvement was purely as a spectator or as a music director. I'm not even sure he played at all. He was not touring at that time. The rest of the group was instead. That's why Bruce was there. So there's a lot of comedy on this album too, and some of the jokes work and some of them don't. A lot of jokes about sobriety, about people going out and getting drunk either before, during, or after the big football game. Kind of reminds me of that College Humor sketch, which to paraphrase says, our football team sucks, but it's a good excuse to get trashed on a Tuesday. So, I don't know, definitely a lot of jokes about that, and the Beach Boys saying, oh, we had 5 hours to kill between shows, so we went out and did, you know, such and such, and, you know, not exactly stating what they were doing, but heavily implying it. A lot of jokes about the cheap seats, and, you know, people in the back, can you hear us back there? Things like that. Pretty funny, pretty clever, and weirdly enough, there's a big section devoted to anti-Beach Boys protesters. I don't know how true any of this is, but apparently there were people with picket signs saying the Beach Boys were undermining the cultural progress of America. And so on Mike Love jokes, we don't even know how to spell that. So, I don't know. Interestingly enough, if you watch my 4th of July video from last year, we talk about James Watt claiming the Beach Boys were a bad influence and inadvertently encouraging pro-Beach Boys protesters to be outside the White House. So figure that out. Maybe the Beach Boys have always courted more controversy than we've given them credit for, but definitely some interesting bits there. Mike Love handles most of the jokes. He's not too unhinged compared to something like Live in Chicago, or the unofficial album Ringin' the Liberty Bell. He's restrained enough to be amusing without being like, dude, are you okay? Sometimes I get those vibes. I've met Mike Love. He's different. So sometimes though the lack of visuals impacts the jokes, like Mike Love talking about his sunglasses. The problem is we can't see them, so I don't know what we're supposed to be laughing at exactly, but all told, you don't really always need the visuals. Usually just the audio works. Mike Love talks about turning out the lights so he can go pee behind a fire hydrant, things like that. I don't know. Different stuff. I gotta say, the audience is really into it too. They applaud a lot, they get involved, they clap along, they warmly welcome the boys when they come out. You know, it's a really good group. For the Beach Boys maybe starting to be seen as kind of square in 1966, this group is into it. They're happy to be there. Mike Love says they're made up of students, faculty, and alumni, so maybe a slightly older audience. I don't know, it's hard to say, but interesting though. And the audience really likes it. And they get into both the classics and the new stuff, so figure that out. Some of the songs are a little rough. Good Vibrations is kind of thin. Mike Love actually plays the theremin. I Get Around sounds really ragged. I don't know. But for the most part, yeah, no, it's what you'd expect for a five-man band, you know, doing these classics. Interestingly, the vibe is pretty positive. When we talk about the 1967 and 1968 concerts, there's a lot of stuff like, oh, this song is so nostalgic, it'll make you throw up. That kind of stuff. And some real bitterness towards their early tunes, calling them moldy oldies and pimples from the past and things like that. Here, it's much more positive. Even the oldies medley, you know, which starts with Surfin' Safari, and Mike Love stops and says, phony start, and they jump into fun, fun, fun. But it's much more positive, much more upbeat. The Beatles' You've Got to Hide Your Love Away is Denny's contribution. He comes down and presumably plays the acoustic guitar and sings. They still have some of that Beach Boys party vibe, where they're, you know, jokingly yelling audience to yell, hey, and things like that, and kind of countering the melancholy of the song. But all told, it's pretty good. They do much more of the party kind of stuff on that song as opposed to Barbara Ann. Barbara Ann is done basically straight, which is still pretty goofy in the Beach Boys way, but that kind of thing. California Girls has a big intro with Mike Love joking about it being, I believe it's Ferdy Groffet's Grand Canyon Suite, his epic 5-part musical saga, and California Girls is just like that. And the audience doesn't laugh. They must not have known who Ferdy Groffet was. So instead Mike Love switches to his backup joke, if you know the lyrics, just shut up. That kind of thing. The audience at least gets a chuckle there. The Pet Sounds stuff is pretty good for being pretty early performances of it. You know, Good Vibrations, again, very early performance. Certainly one of the first 3 or 4 they ever did, but pretty good. Graduation Day is near the end. Again, this is a homecoming concert, but a Graduation Day album. I don't know. That was one they'd been doing for a while. You know, some of these songs like Papa Ooh Mau Mau we've been seeing in their live set for many years, but like Dennis's contribution, gets switched up from The Wanderer to Do You Want to Dance to Now You've Got to Hide Your Love Away. Barbara Ann, the big closer, get the audience singing and jumping around. And I like their cover of Johnny B. Good, which Brian may or may not play on, but the audience is into it. They give Chuck Berry a nice shout out, you know, oh, this is an oldie, but it's a goodie, that kind of thing. I like that. The KOMA radio promo, again on the Good Vibrations box set, very short. Wonderful KOMA, that kind of thing. Getting some harmonies there. That's nice, but not consequential. And the Honeys doing Row, Row, Row Your Boat. I don't know, I always think of that one Star Trek movie when someone does Row, Row, Row Your Boat. But they do a nice job on it, I guess. I don't know much about the Honeys. I'm assuming this is available on one of their other collections, too. Couldn't really say for sure. Pushed as kind of the girl equivalent to the Beach Boys, but never really, you know, found that footing. But a very fun release. So all told, of the digital releases, you know, there have been several concerts. Sacramento 1964 from 2014, Chicago 65 from 2015, Beach Boys on Tour 1968 from 2018. This is, I think, a pretty good one. It's positive, it's fun, it's not so long that it becomes intimidating when we talk about the 1967 and 1968 collections. We're talking over 100 tracks. Kind of hard to you know, cover all that well without it just being like, yeah, this is too much. But concise, fun, you know, yeah, it's a little ropey, and yeah, some things probably could have been rehearsed a little more, but all told, I think it was a worthy listen. And if you have any thoughts on the Beach Boys digital collections or their 1966 catalog, please do comment below. I love hearing from you. Again, hats off to the grads. We'll see you next time to talk about sounds of summer. And until then, my friends, go out there and catch a wave. We'll see you next time.